Hello and welcome to Wingin It. And so we are back here with some much anticipated commentary. This is a post-commentated game I played recently from the Ultramarine Lorikeet Lollapalooza, which is our most recent tournament over on the Wingspan Tournaments Discord. So pretty straightforward tournament, this one. It is a best of 3 knockout bracket. So we're here in round 1. And we're up against Isaacs. And yeah, you can see already got a bit of complication here. 2 players with the same avatar and the same color is not advised. So we decided to switch up. We're going purple here. So bear that in mind. It was definitely a bit more tricky for me to mentally look at the purple and not the red. But yeah, here we go into the starting hand here. And you'll see the glaring omission staring in the face. No wetland birds. So definitely a bit of a shame. And yeah, good forest access, good food access, but Wingspan games are won and lost on their card access. So yeah, not having the wetland bird here is definitely making things more difficult. So what I'm trying to think about here is how am I going to negotiate this first round without a wetland bird? Do I just dig from the deck, or do I bide my time? You know, use these 2 forest birds. I think particularly the cardinal and the flycatcher. Both really good, strong brown powers, getting food. And they kind of work well here together. I'm sort of planning out, thinking here, okay, I can keep the food for the cardinal. I can play that through checking the feeder. We know there's a worm there, so I can gain the worm. Obviously, the cardinal then gives me the berry. That's the flycatcher food sorted. So that's sort of what I'm thinking. But really, I'm just trying to work out what else I do. With those 8 turns, I think it's so important in the early game, in this first round in Wingspan, work out what you're going to do with those 8 turns. And when it's not always obvious, you know, it can sometimes be a little bit tricky, give you some difficult decisions to make. So one option, of course, is just to get these birds down and then start digging from the deck. I don't really like doing that, just taking single casts from the deck. It's such a huge gamble. And yeah, you can really just end up not getting good stuff, and you're just wasting that first round, just drawing and drawing and drawing, and not really finding the stuff that you want to be looking to play. And it's definitely complicated a bit as well by this first end of round goal. Cards in hand, when you've really not got a good way of getting extra cards into your hand. Yeah, that could be a tricky one to work out. So in the end here, you'll see we go with Griffin Vulture, and the only reason really for that is because it does hit prey manager. So what I'm sort of thinking here is, okay, I can get these 2 forest birds down. I can start getting a bit of food. Who knows, maybe my opponent, if they don't have a forest bird, maybe they want to take that red-shoulded hawk. That gives me another card to look at that's going to come up in the tray. Maybe they're going to go for that long spur, but if not, that's certainly one I'm looking at with this prey manager. But yeah, my plan here really in this first round is just, as I say, to get those 2 forest birds down. I know I can get those down within 4 turns. And then just take food a bunch and see where it puts us. I think if I can get a good food advantage here, then really I'm just waiting on that round 2 tray. And obviously in a slightly weaker position, being that I'm going first here in this first round, it means I'm going second in the second round. So if we do get a tray that has a wetland bird, I am not getting first dibs on that. So I'm going to have to hope that either there's multiple wetland birds or that my opponent is going to leave whatever comes up. But so much for me in this game is going to be riding on that round 2 tray. And so here we go. It is onto our first turn. Our opponent going with a pretty standard spread there. But as I say, we're going to get this cardinal down. So first few turns, straightforward enough for us. We are going to, yeah, get the worm from the feeder. And then, of course, cardinal giving us a berry through its brown power. We can then legs. We can play this flycatcher. And then just take food a bunch and see where it puts us. So yeah, opponent goes for food once. We are going to, yeah, follow suit and take one of those worms that's there. Of course, one thing we do have to bear in mind with this great crested flycatcher power is it does only gain worms from the feeder, not the supply. So we are going to be in a good position in that sense because we are going to be taking food a lot. We're hopefully going to have good bird feeder control here, making sure that, yeah, the worms are always there for us to take. So definitely an interesting opening there for our opponent, going with Avocet, not a bird you see often played in the wetlands so early on, especially when you don't have a ground nest to really maximize off that pink egg-laying power. So could well be that they were in a similar position to us and really kind of struggling for the good wetland options in that opening hand. So they laid eggs, certainly would be expecting them to start digging, start drawing cards from the deck and seeing what they find. So yeah, as I say, with this first end around goal, we are going to have to sort of bear that in mind a little bit and kind of play it by ear. My plan really is to take food, at least for these first 3 turns, and then wait and see. As I say, that long spur is something I've got my eye on. I think, you know, it hits my bonus card. I'm going to have loads of food, so pretty easy to get that down. And yeah, you know, just having those 2 cards in my hand, maybe that might be enough to get a tie or even potentially a win. We see my opponent not with the great card access, so yeah, maybe just by, as I say, biding our time and just picking up the birds when they are at least sort of synergizing with what we're trying to do. That could work out well for us here. So you'll see that we're going for food. We're going to tactfully take the non-worms there so that the flycatcher is going to hit. And then you see on the reroll, we've got another worm there. So yeah, certainly bird feeder rerolls are coming up pretty nicely here. As long as there's 1 worm, not too bothered about what other foods I'm going to be gaining. You know, sort of thinking about the seeds maybe if I'm going to look to that long spur. But otherwise, it's just about getting lots of food. It's always kind of difficult in this position where, you know, you're gaining food without really any plan on how to use it. I think this is normally where the kind of convention advice in Wingspan would be draw cards first, look at what birds you've got, and then go and pick some food. Because once you know what birds in your hand or which birds you want to play, that makes that decision making so much easier on what food to gain. So you see the opponent go for the black vulture, so certainly not a bad opening forest bird. Not really going to get too many activations. As it stands, we don't have any predator powers down. But you know, it's a free bird, doesn't cost any food. Certainly in the early game, you can struggle for food a little bit, so certainly not a bad one to get down. And you know, maybe they're going to look to discard some cards here, but again, we come back to this end around goal, which you have a little peek there, but we can also see they've only got 2 cards in hand. So yeah, 3 turns left. Are they going to take food and play a bird? Well, then that's not going to be any cards left in hand. So yeah, certainly something that's in the back of my mind, as I said, thinking about this end around goal. Even if we can't try and get a tie or a win, it might just help us with blocking our opponent from maybe forcing them to draw cards again, or maybe stop them from discarding a card for food, or maybe stop them from playing a bird because they want to make sure they win the end of round goal. So there's always these little things. It's those sort of tiny 1% things in Wingspan. But I think Wingspan can sometimes be an accumulation of those little 1% differences over the course of a game that can help you go and get the win. And back once more to our turn. There we go. You can see our opponent has drawn cards now, so they are on 4. So we'll see how that plays out for their remaining couple of turns. But yeah, we're just going to go for food. We get the seed, as I say, kind of thinking about that long spurt, and then so many worms to pick from with the flycatcher. So definitely paying off here. You know, a healthy stack of food, being able to get 4 food from your forest early on, it's definitely nice. So yeah, obviously kind of struggling with the card draw, but not so much for the food. So as I say, the plan here is certainly get a bunch of food and then just wait and see. We're going to hope that, you know, no matter what wetland bird comes up, as long as there's something there that can go in the wetlands, you know, we're going to be able to afford any bird in the game with all this food. So definitely was kind of thinking, okay, let's try and get some fish, let's try and get some rodents. You normally kind of see that sort of food cost for wetland birds. But yeah, just in general, get a real variety of food and sort of see, yeah, see where it takes you, see what options you get in that round 2 tray, and kind of roll with it. So you see my opponent is going for food here. They have reset the feeder. So this is what I'm talking about. We're sort of trying to block what our opponent's doing, or try and really make it difficult for them with this end around goal, because they did discard a card. So they're on 3 here. And so we are going to go ahead, pick up this long spur. Hopefully, don't reveal anything amazing. Little owl, love to see it coming up when your opponent is potentially looking at going for cards. So yeah, they're in a bit of a tricky spot here, I think. Because, you know, you've just gone for food. Maybe you'd want to play a bird, but if you play a bird, you end up losing 3 points from the end around. Maybe they'd want to go for food again, but they couldn't do that either. So I think in the end, they just went and laid eggs. And indeed they did. So that preserved the end of round for them. And yeah, here we are into round 2, and we've got 3 wetland birds in the tray. So we'll take it. Barn Swallow, we would have liked. It's definitely going to be gone. No doubt about that. My opponent is going to be picking it up. But Hooded Crow is definitely not a terrible option. And I'm wasting absolutely no time going and grabbing that. So, yeah, not normally a bird I would lean on. Particularly this Hooded Crow. It's quite expensive. As I talked about in a recent series looking at teal powers, teal or no teal, do go check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, it's a bit expensive, only 3 points, and the teal power relies on other players laying eggs. So yeah, if my opponent has gone for the Barn Swallow, and if they do follow conventional Wingspan and play that in the grasslands, we might be able to get something from a bit of a grasslands engine that they go for. But yeah, really, as I say, I'm not too worried about the food cost. I know it is expensive, but we've got so much food. We've got all these berries, and luckily the Hooded Crow with those 2 omnivore spaces does eat anything. So yeah, I think the plan here really is just get that down, start drawing some cards. We're going to need some cards in hand, of course, to use the power at the round end, but also just in general, try and draw some good stuff. And yeah, hopefully we can start to get some sort of engine going, because at the moment it's all food and not much else. So here we go. There we go. Barn Swallow goes down. And yeah, we're going to follow with this Hooded Crow. As I say, use those couple of berries. And almost looks like it's not really taking a dent out of our food. You know, we have still got 9 food there, which is pretty mad. But yeah, hopefully, as I say, if we can draw some good stuff. You know, normally in this round 2, you'd be drawing stuff and then going for food and then playing it. We've already got the food, so we're sort of cutting out that middle step. In theory, hopefully, saving a bit of tempo, saving some turns here. You know, we've done the investment in that round 1, biding our time. And yeah, so much here is just going to be based on what we draw. So Barn Swallow goes down, American Crow also goes down. I am definitely sweating and not feeling very good about this game anymore, because yeah, Crow and Swallow is definitely nice. But as I say, if they go grasslands, we're going to get some tucks with this Hooded Crow. And that certainly is going to help. So let's go and start drawing some cards. And Black-Headed Gull and Dixis will come up, and those, I think, are 2 pretty good options here. So Dixis, of course, hits Prey Manager, very nice. But I think really these 2 birds work quite well in tandem, because Dixis, you need a lot of cards to feed it. Of course, Tuck and Lay, very strong action. You get 2 points per card that you input. But you need cards. At the moment, I don't have any cards, so I'm going to want to draw a lot. And if you play Black-Headed Gull, you definitely want to draw a lot. Stealing food from other players. Particularly, I would expect them to have food pretty regularly if they are going to be using this American Crow. They're going to be laying eggs a lot. They're going to be getting food with that. So yeah, we should, in theory, be able to snaffle a bit of food there through the gull. But there's also the potential for wreaking havoc with this gull, just causing a bit of disruption. You know, your opponent takes a worm, you steal it, and they have a bird feeder like this to choose from with no worms. So can definitely slow things down a little bit. And that just might have to be our play here. So yeah, 4 turns left in this round. What I'm definitely thinking is play Dixis or lay eggs, play Black-Headed Gull, and then we can draw cards on that last turn. So yeah, we'll be good to get something for this end of round. We are going to lose because our opponent does have 2, but from there we should be okay. Start drawing some cards, and yeah, assuming my opponent is going to lay eggs at least a couple of times this round, we should start getting some tucks on that Crow, hopefully cycle through that deck a little bit quicker. Alright, so here we go. We've jumped forward a few turns here onto our last turn of the round. As mentioned, we played the Dixis, we laid eggs, and we played the Gull. So we're going to start stealing, doing what the Black-Headed Gull does best. We're going to go for that seed, because I am thinking that, yeah, this Prairie Chicken could still be a good play in that grasslands. But equally, these other birds we're picking up do also eat seeds. So they just laid eggs once. We're just going to get the 1 tuck. Crossbill can definitely go. And up comes Bronzed Cowbird, which again, another Prairie Manager bird. But also, we've got loads of bold nest space on our Northern Cardinal. And so, yeah, if our opponent, they are going to keep laying eggs. You know, we've now got double counters. We've got the pink power through this Cowbird and the teal power through the Crow. So potentially 2 points every time that they are going to lay eggs. So yeah, just a little bit of a think here of, you know, do I force the Cowbird down now, or do I kind of bide my time, knowing they've got a worm in their supply and I can go and steal that. So we do play it patiently here. I do think, as odd as it sounds, I think food is going to be quite precious in this game. Obviously, we do have that forest where we're potentially getting 4 food, where we can, yeah, go and get a bunch of food when we need it. But certainly my plan, how I'm sort of seeing this playing out as we're sort of transitioning through into the end game. Always good to sort of think about your plans. What are you going to do in that end game? And it feels like it's just going to be drawing cards and laying eggs. So yeah, we draw cards, we filter through the deck. Obviously, we need some cards for this hooded crow. But also then when we go and lay eggs, we're going to need cards for the Dixis also. That is certainly what I'm thinking. And yeah, just looking at these birds in my hand, I mean, the prairie chicken, definitely still looking at playing that with the prairie manager bonus. We also picked up that king rail on that previous turn. So another bonus card giving bird, another one that costs 3 food. So might take a bit of investment there. But yeah, my opponent there going for cards. So we're very happy. We've not missed out on a free egg from the cowbird, and we're going to make sure we don't miss out on any more because we're just going to go plonk that down. So yeah, very happy to be getting those 2 counters down, because my opponent, as I said, it's a good grasslands. It started off strong, but it's not really seen much development. So I think they're in a tricky position here where, you know, if you lay eggs, you're only getting a few points, and you're giving 2 points to me. I'm getting an egg and a tuck. So certainly as you transition through into the later stages of this game, you're not really going to want to be laying eggs too many more times, unless you can really build this out into a stronger point scoring grasslands that really overwhelms or sort of, yeah, just overpowers really this this double counter I've got. So yeah, definitely feeling good to get those down. And as I say, it's probably just going to be about drawing cards a few more times, just really seeing and really assessing the situation. I think if I can get something else for the prairie manager and get those 8 points, all the better. But yeah, just all going to be about what we see, what we can find, and then we can really think about what we're going to be playing. So first cowbird eggs come in, very nice, very lovely stuff. And there we go, our opponent has got worms and seeds, which is what we want if we're going to be playing the prairie chicken, or even this king rail does need a worm. So we are going to go 4 cards again and see what we find. We're going to find a Benelli's eagle. Very, very lovely stuff. So yeah, that just sort of really strengthens, I think, my my position here in terms of drawing cards a lot. Benelli's eagle, of course. Really, really strong bird. If you have the cards to feed it, you can avoid that food cost and pay with tuck cards instead. So potentially 11 points before the egg cost for no food. And yeah, if, as I said, food is precious because I want to be feeding this prairie chicken, potentially, that needs 3 food. I want to be feeding this king rail, potentially also needing 3 food. I'm not going to have so much food to just throw around on many, many more 3 food cost birds. So Benelli's eagle, yeah, it needs no introduction. It's definitely going to be a good one for me to play. And so jumping ahead to our next turn here, we have got a decision to make. Do we play the Benelli's eagle now, or do we hold off a little bit? We see there our opponent has got Bruised Blackbird down, so that is really strengthening that grasslands, as I was talking about, getting those point numbers up when you are laying eggs. So that's going to be good for them. But equally, I think good for me. If they are going to keep laying eggs, we're going to be continuing to get lots of points. So yeah, really got to think carefully about which cards I get rid of here for this Benelli's eagle. Those first 2, pretty easy, but yeah, difficult decision, I think, between the shoveler and the king rail. You know, king rail, you're always gambling on that bonus card. Shoveler, safe, 7 points. In the end, I do get rid of the shovel. I think partly what my thinking was here is I do already have a fish for the king rail, and if I'm going to be really low on food and really trying to sort of squeeze out as much as I can from the food that I've got, I want to be using as much of it as efficiently as possible. So if we are going to play this long spur, which I think I have been calling a prairie chicken all game, they are functionally the same bird in my head, then that's obviously going to need 3 foods, but potentially 4 because we've only got 1 of the correct food at the moment. So that might take a little bit of careful thinking and planning. But yeah, really my reasoning for trying to rush down this this Benelli's eagle was just thinking about the end of round. I want to try and get 2 more birds in this grassland to try and at the very least tie. I am expecting them to play a 4th one. I'd be surprised if they can get to 5. Potentially win it if they don't play a 4th with the eagle and this long spur. So Yeah, that's certainly what I'm thinking. And also, just by playing the eagle now, I did remember they have the vulture, so that is going to trigger that. Of course, they gain the food. And so then that means when I go for cards on this next turn, I'm going to get a bit more choice just in terms of what food I steal. So they have laid eggs. And there we go. We can see they've got a worm and a seed, which is exactly the food that I want to be seeing. So we are going to go and draw cards. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and steal food off them. We're going to steal, I think, the worm in this case. And then one turn left. We've got those 2 eggs. Cowbird coming through. With the second egg, we need to play the long spur. And as I say, it's going to take a bit of forcing. And it's definitely difficult when you're sort of forcing birds like this with food that you might potentially need later. Especially during something like this red-tailed hawk. I've already got 2 rodents. I'm sort of thinking, is it worth trying to keep the 2 rodents and playing that, and maybe just laying eggs a bunch? But as I say, I do think the strength here is potentially just going to be in getting the extra bonus cards and seeing where that takes us. So there's the 4th grassland bird in the bed sparrow, but yeah, no food left. So unless they've got something they can play for free, I don't think they're going to be winning this end of round course. So it is time to play the long spur. And as I say, difficult decisions on what food to chuck, but we decide to keep the rodent for safekeeping for that next round. An omnivore expert on the bonus card. Very, very nice pickup. Already 4 points. And really does kind of strengthen my feelings towards this King Rail. I, of course, was already considering playing it for the bonus card itself. But now knowing that it is going to get 2 extra points. Very, very nice stuff. And yeah, at this point, all I'm thinking really is, what birds can I find that hit both Prairie Manager and Omnivore? So there are a few. Certainly the Roadrunner is the one that always comes to mind for me in this position. And when you've got a rodent in the supply, you're certainly hoping, beyond hope, that one is potentially going to come up. But yeah, even without that, I think in this last round I should be good to yeah, hopefully draw cards. Hopefully I can get a worm off them and be able to get the King Rail done. But otherwise, we might just do a bit of egg laying. So we get a couple of tucks, of course, through this hooded crow. And we get another omnivore bird here in this pink power cuckoo. So another potential decision to be made on that front. And yeah, as I say, we've already got 2 counters to the grasslands. But if we can get 3, they have managed to flesh out the grasslands a bit more through their blackbird. They got the bed sparrow down as well. So certainly that to me points towards potential late game egg spam, which does mean, of course, these pink powers really, yeah, really valuable. And Cardinal with the 5 egg spaces could be a very good option for us. So yeah, there we go. That's my opponent's board. So yeah, definitely built up the grasses, but you can see only 10 egg spaces. So that was another thing going through my mind is, okay, whenever I get to the final round, I always try and think, what is my opponent's end game? What does it look like for them? As I say, normally you think egg spam here, but egg space is a problem, and they only gain 1 food a turn. So you're going to need a lot of cheap birds that have a lot of egg space, but normally those are not the birds you look to play in the final round, because you know, low food cost and high egg space normally comes with a low victory point value. So definitely, yeah, makes them more difficult to play, or less appealing, maybe I should say, in this final round. So yeah, it could potentially come down to, for us, what food they're going to be gaining and what food we can steal. As I said earlier on in this game, potential for havoc here with the black-headed gull is so strong. You know, for example, maybe my opponent wants a fish. They take a fish with their crow. I just go and steal it, and then there's no fish in the bird feeder for them to go and gain. So yeah, we'll have to just wait and see a little bit on what our opponent's going to do. But yeah, we've got some interesting decisions here. We're probably going to draw cards at least once more, so that might hopefully give us a bit more information to work out what the best decision's going to be. All right, so here we go on to our first turn of the round. You can see my opponent has laid eggs, and we get a free egg. As a result, unfortunately, they took a seed, which is definitely a food I don't need right now. I'm looking for worms for sure. Again, this King Rail, if I want to be playing that, needs worms. Cuckoo potentially as well, needs even more worms. So yeah, definitely a tricky one. And I did say we'd need to draw cards at some point, but again, I'm planning out my fun around here. I'm trying to think, okay, what's the most optimal way of doing things? I know I'm going to want to lay eggs at some point. And I've got a card in this Tree Swallow that I'm definitely not going to play. So let's lay eggs now and just buy a bit of time. So that's all I'm doing here. Just really hoping, as I say, that my opponent is going to take a worm. Because what I'm thinking here is, if they have a worm, I can draw cards, get the worm, play the king rail, and I've still got 2 turns. I can just lay eggs those last 2 turns. I'm going to have a couple of cards that I've drawn that I can tuck from the Dick Sissel. I still have 1 spare, so at least get 1 tuck on the crow. And that's hopefully going to be quite an efficient way of doing things. What I really want to avoid is taking food, because taking food is 0 points. I know it's 4 food, and you know, that sort of decision is going through my head. I think if there were more worms in the feeder, and I could go and get a bunch of worms, play the cuckoo, play the king rail, that would certainly be appealing. But as I say, just hopefully really trying to avoid having to take food here. And through this black-headed gull, if I can get cards which I need, and the 1 final food that I need in the same turn, that's hopefully going to save me a bit of time, give me that extra turn laying eggs, because I know that's caused me 6 points. So that's definitely something I want to be doing here in this late game. Alright, onto our turn once more. Our opponent has laid eggs once more, and we eagerly go and see what food they've taken. Unfortunately, it's just another seed, so I've definitely got my hopes up there that another worm was going to come through. And so now the decisions definitely get more difficult. I've got to really think and carefully plan here about what it is I want to be doing. But also, I'm sort of trying to think still of what my opponent's going to do. You know, they've only got 1 egg space left at 3 turns and 2 seeds. Are they going to be able to play a bird and lay eggs twice? Probably not. So are they going to play a bird, lay eggs, and then play another bird? Potentially. Are they going to need to gain a worm for that second bird they want to play? Who knows? You know, these are the kind of things you're trying to work out. These are the kind of things I'm trying to, yeah, just really get into the head of my opponent and really see and think about what they are doing there. So I'm definitely not always easy to do that in these kind of positions where they have lots of options available. But yeah, you can see we're sort of hovering here over the gain food action, and it is definitely going through my mind. As I said, if there were 2 worms in the feeder and I could take those 2 and then re-roll and get a 3rd on the flycatcher, I think I'd be doing that every single time. That gives me the 4 food I need. I can just play these 2 birds and kind of be done with it. And certainly, as I say, with this cuckoo, ideally, if I got that down earlier on in this round, I'd already be getting more eggs from that. So that is definitely coming to my mind a little bit on whether it's worth playing or not. But we do bite the bullet in the end. We do go for food. Yeah, we get the worm on the reroll, so it's okay. It's not completely disastrous. It's not a terrible outcome. So we have at least got enough food here. If I do play the king rail, I can then draw cards, obviously steal, or hopefully steal. This is the other thing. You've got to try and time the drawing of the cards with a moment when they actually have food, which is not always guaranteed. But yeah, hopefully if I can get the steal, that's then going to give me 4 food, and I can force down potentially this cuckoo if I want to. So there we go. They have done a double play there in the forest and cleared up some egg space, but not enough to be laying eggs twice. So I'm sort of thinking, okay, they probably will lay eggs here, take a food to be able to play some other cheap bird on their last turn. So we are going to play the king rail, and we're going to get a very, very nice bonus card again in the Ethologist there. So already, 2 rows that have got the 6 points there. Unfortunately, you don't get bonus points for that, but I'll still take 6. Ethologist for me, I think, definitely one of the best bonus cards, and yeah, certainly one of the best bonus cards that you could draw in the middle of the game, because normally you've got 4 points. In situations like this where you've got 6, even better. So yeah, very, very fortuitous pickups, I think, here on the bonus cards from the long spell and the king rail. But sometimes you need that where you've not already got the good engine going. You've got to get your points somewhere. So getting them from bonus cards in this sort of situation, definitely a nice way to go. And okay, here we go on to our penultimate turn. You can see our opponent has gone ahead and laid eggs, and they have grabbed a food. They've gone and grabbed a seed. So that gives us an option here. It does give us an option to just go ahead and yeah, draw cards, get the extra food, and then potentially look at playing this cuckoo in. Equally, I think drawing cards here is important because my opponent has been laying eggs, I believe, 3 times this round. So that would be, yeah, there we go, 3 cubes. That would be 3 tucks on this hooded crow. And at the moment, I don't have cards to be doing that. So if I go draw cards, they're still going to be worth points here. They're still going to be scoring points through the hooded crow. So I am just sort of thinking here, okay, do I just lay eggs twice? Is that actually better points-wise? Of course, I've got to bear in mind this Avocet potentially. They might get a couple of eggs off that. So my 6-point turns become 5-point turns, 10 points for 2 turns. I've got to think to myself, okay, if I'm drawing cards, how many points am I going to get from drawing cards? How many points am I going to get from playing this cuckoo? Or potentially some other bird that I might find instead. Is that going to be better or worse? I'm definitely thinking about the potential of drawing a prairie manager bird and certainly roadrunner food exactly in my supply. Does kind of, you know, make you think, what if I go ahead and draw that and get the perfect bird to be able to play that? But yeah, difficult decisions. Got to make sure that you make the right call here. With just 2 turns to go, every point is critical, and this certainly feels like to me what could be a very close game. But yeah, we do go ahead and draw some cards, and yeah, first 2, not what we're looking for, but we know we're safe here in chucking an egg because the extra card is always going to be worth a point here. And we draw Belted Kingfisher, which not only hits not only hits the Omnivore, but it also hits Ethologist, so that could potentially be a play for us on that last turn. If we think about it, it's 4 points, plus 2 from one bonus card, plus 2 from another, but then subtract to a cost 6 points. Equally, we do have still this pink power, this cuckoo, which is also 6 points because it's 5 minus 1 and then plus 2 for the Omnivore, but it costs extra food. So if we're thinking about being efficient and keeping as much food as we can in the unlikely event of a food tiebreaker, we want to try and keep as much food as possible there. So probably what I'm thinking is probably one of those 2 plays is going to be the way to go. We're still going to have those 3 cards left for getting the tucks on the hooded crow, and that is definitely something that we want to be bearing in mind. So our opponent, in fact, does not play birds. They go and lay eggs, and for me that changes everything, because now if they've got no egg space, laying eggs is actually still worth 6 points. So you see, initially I go ahead and go and play that Kingfisher as I've been thinking through in my mind, but double check, always double check your opponent's board. No egg space, for me that means laying eggs here. It's still 6 points, but I keep all the food. So if we're thinking even more about this food tiebreaker, yeah, if we can keep all of our food here, that definitely gives us a stronger position there. So I'm just triple checking. You don't want to make a silly mistake like this late in the game by laying eggs when it wasn't the best play. But yeah, in the end, all that talk about food being precious, all that talk about getting that one final play, sometimes it goes out the window when your opponent does something that you maybe didn't quite expect. So yeah, we go ahead and lay eggs and then get our 3 hooded crow tucks. We do miss out on 1, unfortunately, but not the end of the world. And 6 tucks on a hooded crow, I've seen a lot worse. So it definitely bailed me out a little bit here. But really just needing that wetland bird, as I said, in that round 2 was critical. But here we go into the scores. And yeah, I was really not sure, really not sure which way this was going to go. It did come a bit down to the bonus cards, I think here. 15-0 is a big difference. I know my opponent scored very well in the end of round goal, so they drag it back a bit there. Eggs, even more, dragging it back. But I think with our tuck cards, in the end, it is just about enough for the win. 90 points in the end for us and 80 for our opponent. So 90 points, I would definitely take that, I think, for a game that started with no wetland birds and lots of uncertainty. I think 90 points is a pretty good score. As I say, definitely some luck on the bonus cards. Maybe not so much there for my opponent, Bird Bandit, missing out entirely. But I'm pretty happy with how that went by getting those counters down, really put my opponent off laying eggs, but also when they did lay eggs, I was able to benefit very, very strongly off that. And yeah, of course, being able to get Benelli's Eagle, super nice play. Bonus cards were good as well, but we'll definitely take it, and we'll take the win there in this game 1. So best of 3 series, we're not through yet. We still do have at least 1 and maybe 2 more games to come to see who gets through into round 2. And if you want to see those future games, please do hit that subscribe button. There will be another game coming your way very, very soon.